and welcome. I'm Professor Ryan Carlin of Political Science, and I'm the moderator of today's session. On behalf of the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, GSU's Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies program, and GSU Study Abroad programs, I'd like to welcome you to GSU's Fall 2022 Global Career Series, an International Education Week event. This series features representatives from globally connected organizations to talk to students and recent graduates about rewarding opportunities to work in global spheres with international populations in Atlanta, in the US, and abroad. We hope you'll feel inspired to expand your horizons and to pursue global careers, internships, and volunteer opportunities. Before we begin, we want to get to know you a little bit better. You will see a pop-up on your screen. There it is, for me at least. Please answer a few questions about yourself really quickly, and we will share the results in a couple of minutes. I'm just looking. Yeah, it's only 4 questions. As you're completing the poll, I'd like to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Firstly, this section is being recorded. We ask that you keep your mics muted to reduce any noise during the presentations. All Global Career Studies, Global Career Series videos can be found on YouTube by following the link in the chat. And I'm going to put this in now so you all have it. Oh, there it is. Someone beat me to it. All right. There'll be about 30 minutes for Q&A after panelist presentations. Type your questions in the chat at any time, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. Today's session will focus on careers in U.S. foreign affairs abroad, with representatives from the U.S. Department of State, USAID, the Peace Corps, and GSU Study Abroad programs. Before we introduce our panelists, let's quickly take a look at the results of our poll. How do I do that? Aha, there it is. 42% of you are undergraduates. 8% are graduates. I recognize at least one. Hi, Clark. No alumni at the moment. We have 25% faculty and 8% faculty, and I'm sorry, 8% faculty, 25% staff, and 17% guests. We are so glad you're here. We have folks from all over the university, but 58% are from arts and sciences. We have 8% from the College of the Arts and another 8% from Andrew Young School of Policy Studies. And 25% did not answer that question. It's a tough one. And then finally, we have humanities majors making up a third of our crowd here today. Social science about 42%, education's 8%, business is 8%, and information and technology or computer science is another 8%. Primary reason for attending: to learn more about volunteer opportunities. 8% to learn more about internships, 25% to find a job. I'm ready to work. That sounds like a LinkedIn little logo. Great advice to get advice on starting a global career, 8% of y'all, and all of the above, 17%, just curious, 17%, and other. So that's who we are. And it looks like a very nice, diverse group of folks. So let us, I'd like to introduce our panelists really quickly. We have Vallera Gibson, a retired diplomat in residence from the U.S. Department of State, covering the South Atlanta area 2017 through 19. Mr. Derrick Brown, a development diplomat in residence from USAID. Ms. Jackie Valadez, a recruiter from the Peace Corps. And Jessica Nichol Burton, an advisor in the GSU Study Abroad office. I'd like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us about their organizations and what they do. From there, we'll launch into the Q&A portion of the program. So if we can get this underway, let's start with you, Vallera.
Okay, thank you. And I am so glad to see everybody that is out there to join us to get more information about the wonderful lifestyle and career that I've been involved in for most of my life. I started out as an Army officer. I am third generation, and then spent some time in corporate America. And then at 45 years old, I joined the Department of State. And it was one of the best decisions. As the Department of State, we are the leading agency on foreign affairs. We are located in more than in all of the countries except for a few, which if you're reading internationally, you understand we are not there. But our job and our mission is to amplify the mission of the United States. And we do that in embassies and consulates around the world. We have, I heard about the questions on why the participants are here. We have internships, we have fellowships, we have jobs. So what I will ask you to do is to go to careers.state.gov, and I'll put it into the chat, and start really searching about what it is that you want to do. Because I kind of paneled a little bit earlier, as my grandmother says, there is a lid for every pot. So wherever you are in your journey, it is as a student or someone who's getting ready to graduate or someone who's looking for doing a internship or a semester abroad in one of our embassies or consulates, we do have the opportunities, and we're looking for diverse talent, and that would be you. So please don't hesitate to get in contact with us.
Thank you so much, Vallera. I'd like to ask Jackie to go next.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jackie Valadez, and I am here representing the Peace Corps. So for anyone who is unfamiliar with the Peace Corps, we are a federal agency, and the purpose of our agency, our mission, is to promote world peace and friendship. And we do that by working with countries who are interested in partnering with us to promote world peace and friendship. We work with interested countries to create programming that addresses a need that country has identified, and we work within those parameters. So we're looking for people willing to work with others, willing to learn different ways of approaching the task at hand, and flexible with that. And while we're working overseas and invited guests in several countries abroad, we are promoting a better understanding of who we are as Americans here in the United States. And at the same time, we're also getting a better understanding of the people we serve, and getting a better image and more accurate image of the country there. So for anyone who is interested in the Peace Corps, I hope you consider us. We are a 2-year program after typically postgraduate or after 5 years of professional experience if you do not go to college. And from there, 2 years with Peace Corps, it can open up career pathways to the federal workforce or grad school opportunities to go at a reduced tuition rate. So I really hope everyone considers the Peace Corps. You get to meet so many people, so many different types of people, truly a snapshot of the US. So I hope you all consider it, especially if you are thinking about Peace Corps and then jumping to another federal agency in the future. We also offer internship programs, and I can pull up a link. I believe our applications just closed, but keep an eye out for those. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I beg your pardon for coughing. I didn't know I had my mic unmuted. Could we please continue with Jessica? I believe that she fits well with what Jackie was saying, and then we'll go to Mr. Derrick.
Yeah, sure. My name is Jessica Burton, and yes, I am also a returned Peace Corps volunteer. But I'm also a Georgia State University alum. So I'm here sort of representing Peace Corps, but also the university. I am also currently an advisor with study abroad programs at Georgia State. And I'm a former teacher of English as a foreign language, which I did in Morocco for 4 years. So I'm kind of coming from a bunch of different diverse background in global careers. I think study abroad programs is a good kind of segue into Peace Corps. So while I did do international programming under volunteership, study abroad is an academic international experience, and it can be a good segue to Peace Corps. So I'm excited to share more about that.
Thank you very much. Derrick?
Yes, thank you, Ryan. First of all, I'd like to say welcome to all. And it's such a pleasure and an honor for me to be on a panel with so many distinguished women. You know, it's not often that, I'll be the minority on the panel. So I'm so excited to see so much diversity in this panel. I'm Derrick Brown. I work for the United States Agency for International Development. We're a lead government agency. We work hand in hand with Department of State in 80+ countries, working with foreign aid. And as most of you probably not aware, but the foreign aid is less than 1% of our national budget. And we're hoping that one day that get increased. But anyway, we're glad to be working abroad. I would say we're very excited about being here. My career was a very interesting one. I started my career as an intern. So I'm so glad to see so many undergrad, because I started as an intern, and today we can share many different ways that Vallera talked about, whether it's internship, fellowship, and I understand that 25% that you're here to find a job. Well, we're here to educate you on ways that you can find a job. During that period that I was in school, I was a foreign service. I had a foreign service officer come to talk to me, just like we are talking to you guys today, and about international development. And I knew at that point that this is what I wanted to do. And I heard about all of the exciting work that individual was doing. And I said, you know what, that's a career that I want. So later I joined the Foreign Service, and I was fortunate to live in 10 different countries and have learned 4 different languages. And 32 and a half years later, I'm back in the United States, where I, feel that my career has been rewarding. I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. So I've benefited professionally and personally. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you guys and sharing some of those things that we have done. Over to you, Ron.
Thank you all for sharing. From your descriptions, it's clear that you're all doing work that is important and also very meaningful to each of you. Let's start our discussion with a few basic questions, and I'd like to remind folks in the audience to type your questions for our panelists in the chat. I'm going to start with one that I think I actually want to pick up on the theme that Derrick started his out with, which is, and this is for each of you to answer. So, in what ways does your organization show its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion? And maybe we can go in any order, or we can start with Vallera, since we're kind of coming back that direction.
Okay, would love to answer that question. We do a lot for inclusion, because as you can imagine, our responsibility is to represent the United States abroad. Therefore, we must be diverse in every category. And I want to step back and say, diversity is just not what you see. It incorporates a lot of different categories, not only race and gender, which we typically think about, but social economics and sexual orientation and geography, because all of these represents categories that when we go overseas, we really need to be able to talk about from a personal experience standpoint. So when we talk about inclusion and diversity and abilities that are there, the State Department, by the mere fact of my last position, the current position as diplomat in residence, that is where we take 18 diplomats out embassies and place them in universities around states. And our total mission for 2 years is to recruit the. So I say that and say that we realize how important it is to have a diverse workforce. We really are reaching out. We really want diverse talent, and pretty much everybody will fit into that category. So if you're interested in a global and very exciting, quite frankly, career, please do reach out to our diplomats in residence. They are there. That is their whole mission. That's their whole job. is to make sure that the face of the state, our diplomatic corps, represents the face of the United States.
Thank you so much. Who else would like to answer that? Jackie, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. And Vallera is what she said is what we also believe in the Peace Corps. We are a reflection of the US, and we have to show that in our Peace Corps volunteer force. And one of those is by bringing in people from all over the US, all ages. So not just those who just graduated from college, as one may typically think, oh, Peace Corps, that's when I was younger. No, you can apply at any point in time as long as you're over the age of 18. So we're looking at a different, we're looking at all levels of what diversity means, and to also be inclusive and to promote equity. One recent change Peace Corps made to allow for everyone to be able to partake in Peace Corps, because we know there could be some financial barriers to being a Peace Corps volunteer. I experienced them myself, is a full reimbursement cost for those medical clearance tasks. So to be a Peace Corps volunteer, and if you choose to apply and are invited to join us, you will have to undergo a medical clearance. So the Peace Corps realized a lot of people dropped off, and to create sort of to support in easing that barrier, all those costs associated with that portion of your process are now fully reimbursable, as a way to continuously bring in great talent, great and diverse individuals from all over. But we are very committed to the cause. We are very committed to also, as staff members, learning and adapting to changing ideas and new concepts that may arise that we are unaware of, and to embrace that, to fully support our Peace Corps volunteers in the field.
Excellent. Thank you. Jessica.
Well, similarly, along with Jackie, my representation of diversity, one thing that I do see with Peace Corps and even study abroad programs is that there's a lot of outreach currently to recruit a more diverse population of people going abroad and engaging international programming. And I'm representative of that. And so I think, with Peace Corps, I was very supported in terms of getting through the process and, being informed of some challenges I might face while abroad. But I think, and even with study abroad programs, there's a lot of, scholarships and outreach that's catered to kind of developing more of a diverse population abroad. And so, personally, I'm just representative of that. And, that these opportunities are out here and that they are accessible to everyone and the diverse population that is America.
Thank you so much. Derrick, how would you say your organization is open to or committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, well, similar to my colleagues, not to repeat what they've stated, but I would say that my agency is committed to diversity. I myself went undergrad to a HBC, Historically Black College and University, and my agency recruited from that university. So that's how I started as an intern. So they were doing it 30 plus years ago. Will I say that we're on the levels that we should be? No. Will I say that we have some of the best programs now that I've seen since I've joined the agency with the current administration that have put forth a really big effort at trying to get more diversity within the federal government? I truly haven't seen it like this before. So I would say that not only is my agency committed, but I see other agencies within the federal government really are committed. And we're doing that with outreach, as Jessica stated, just trying to do more outreach with educating people about what we have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Kind of want to touch on some of the skills that that you and your organizations look for. Can you give us some recommendations for those in our audience about foreign languages? Are there particular languages that you need? Any critical languages? And how does your organization deal with heritage speakers? Do they kind of teach them new languages, stick with their old languages? Does that give them a leg up or something? So anyway, thank you. Vallera, can you please begin?
Yes, absolutely. We truly believe that if we are going to integrate and influence, that we must be conversational in the language of the country that we serve in. One of many advantages of being a Foreign Service officer is we have the Foreign Service Institution, which is located in Virginia. And if you are assigned to a language, you are able to get conversational, maybe a year, and sometimes what we consider the hard languages. It might be 2 years of nothing but language training at no cost to get you prepared to go out and represent the United States. Now, we do have a program for critical languages, and I won't mention them here because it changes every year according to what is going on in the world. But I will include that most individuals, and I've seen Spanish on that critical language list for the last 4 or 5 years, which most individuals would not consider or would not think that it is a critical language. But if you consider what is going on in the world and how we need to interact, that is one of the reasons it is a critical language. So yes, we have Bowman fellows and everything, a lot of programs that surround those that speak languages that are heritage speakers. So we definitely, again, want to be inclusive. And then you can be like myself, who came in with no language. And I was taught several languages as I served the country. So we really go through the whole gamut. We span that whole spectrum. If you are a heritage speaker, please come, we welcome you. If you have no foreign languages, please come, we welcome you.
Thank you. And Derrick, do you see that from the development side as well, or do you have different takes or something you want to add?
Yes, most definitely, because when we go into a country, especially when English is not the first language, then we're required to learn a language, similar as state. I myself, when I went into, thinking back, went into Angola, where English was not the first language. So I had to learn Portuguese. And I had to, as Valerie stated, we have the Foreign Service Institute that you go to learn languages. And you have to, just like you're back in school, you know, you go there, you learn the language, and you have to score and pass. I had to score at least a 3.3, which meant that I was able to talk in Portuguese as well as give speeches. And I would say being in a foreign country where that's all you talking, is just like we're talking now in English, I would be talking in Portuguese. You know, it's a lot of work in addition to your job, but it's essential to learn the language, because part of foreign service, to get tenure in foreign service, you need a language with United States Agency for International Development. And so if you bring your mother language in, then a lot of time you're able to test and score, and that would count as your foreign language. But as you move from one country to another country, then, you know, it's not as tough on you in the school when you're learning if you got some background in various different languages. I myself, like Vallera, came in and I did a little Spanish in college, but it wasn't enough to put me over the edge. And so I really had to learn, and, you know, I'm fortunate to learn 4 more languages. So it can be done, but yes, it helps with coming in with a foreign language. It will help you in your career. Thank you.
Obrigado, Derrick.
De nada.
And Jackie, from the Peace Corps' point of view, how do you see languages? And then Jessica, I want to ask you about how this relates to global competence and study abroad. So go ahead, Jackie.
So seeing a foreign language on someone's resume, which is something I do a lot in supporting an applicant if they choose to apply, an individual if they choose to apply, seeing a foreign language is a big positive, especially if that language is a language that is one of the Romance languages, Spanish, Portuguese, French. And the reason I say that is that only the programs within a Spanish-speaking country, a French-speaking country, or maybe like a Portuguese-speaking country, those may have a requirement to be considered for those. I said a requirement for those programs. Peace Corps is not only working with countries where that is the focus language. There are several programs all across the world. So we don't see it as, oh, this person didn't take a foreign language, or maybe they didn't take a Romance language. That's a negative. Instead, it's, okay, are they trainable? Are they willing to open up their mind to learn? And with that in mind, if you have these languages, great. If you took a different foreign language, also wonderful to see, because as someone said, we can build on that, because you are familiar with learning different grammar structures in a different language. And if you have not taken a foreign language, or it's been a couple of years for you, it is okay, as long as you go in with an open mind, because Peace Corps will train you for the first 3 months of your Peace Corps service that we call pre-service training. And I think you also asked about native speakers. So if you are a native speaker for one of the many languages and you want to work in the country where that language is spoken, I highly recommend the individual talk to a recruiter to see what they need to do to be competitive for the program. I've also spoken with individuals who are heritage speakers and do not want to go to where that country is spoken, because they want to open up their world to a different language. I myself am a heritage Spanish speaker, and I went to a Spanish speaking country for the Peace Corps. I served in Panama. And within Panama, I still had to learn Spanish. It's a different type of Spanish that I grew up with, and that's very important, right? There's different words in the Spanish used locally than the Spanish I grew up with, and it's good to appreciate that. At the beginning, there might have been some faux pas on my end, but hey, that comes with learning and the learning curve, but it is someone who wants to learn. And in the same way, there are people who may have known Spanish and maybe did not want to focus on Spanish, and then instead they were considered for more indigenous communities within Panama. So that's one way it could also work out. But again, there's a lot of variety within language and foreign language in Peace Corps. To see someone who has taken it is a big plus. And if you don't have time to take one, it's okay. We will still definitely consider you.
Thank you so much, all three of you. And Jessica, can you let us know a little bit about how you see study abroad as an important stepping stone toward some of these careers, and especially maybe focus on the GSU offerings and the way we study abroad sometimes is maybe sometimes different. So can you kind of let our students know how you see these study abroad programs fitting into this kind of a career path?
Sure. And kind of as a segue, I wanted to build a little on what Jackie said. When I went to Peace Corps, I went to Thailand, and I didn't speak a lick of Thai or really any other language. I took, after 4 years of high school Spanish, I still couldn't speak it. And, and Peace Corps has one of the most extensive, well-rounded language programs that I've ever experienced. After 3 months of 4 hours of Thai a day, I was completely fluent. Joking, I still couldn't speak it that well, but it gave me the tools I needed to succeed in my community. And so, kind of segueing into your question about global competence, to tie it into language, I don't think that it's necessary to have a certain level of language competence or fluency when you're going into a community. But as Vallera said earlier, I think having a certain level of global competence can, also be acquired through being immersed in an international community. Even though I had, for example, 2.5 months of language training, it wasn't until I had actually immersed and engaged with native speakers in my community that I actually, developed my skills truly. So I think, going back to global competency, in my view, in order to have a certain level of competency and awareness, you really should engage with communities overseas. And, that could be for 2 weeks, it could be for a term, it could be for a whole year, or in the case of Peace Corps, it could be for 2 years. But in study abroad programming, again, I think that you have the opportunity to engage more short-term experiences. So you can kind of get like a preview of what international living is like, and having interpersonal and intercultural experiences internationally.
Thanks so much. And again, I just want to encourage folks to add questions into the chat. We can intersperse those with some of the ones that I've got prepared. Vallera, how do you see what does global competence mean to you? I think we study that a lot or talk about it a lot academically. How do you see it in young people that are starting out?
Well, it is interesting as a individual that joined the foreign service later in life. I didn't join till I was 45 years old. Now, I had been an Army officer, and my father was an Army officer, so I'd spent a lot of time internationally. But kind of understanding and wanting to understand, and that's kind of what I want to step back is, I don't want anyone out there saying, I have not had these experiences, I don't speak a foreign language, I have not lived abroad, I have not traveled abroad. You still have a lot to offer. If you want to be a part of the service community, regardless of what agency you want to join, because one team, one fight, to come out, and you might say, at this point, I cannot do a semester abroad, I can't do a study abroad. Please still consider using your talents to serve your country in one of our organizations or our agencies. When we talk about, and I will just and let someone else kind of talk about the global competency, because I don't want to spend that much time on it, but I do want to do an appeal, and I want to make sure that we are inclusive and speaking to everybody, because I do know when I go out, I see individuals that have lived abroad, they might be heritage speakers, they might have several different languages, and then somebody standing next to them saying, I cannot possibly apply for these opportunities because I have not had the opportunity to take advantage of these kind of situations. And we don't want you not to consider being one of our colleagues because of that. We would love you to join our teams. I think that every one of my colleagues on this panel has kind of emphasized the fact that we will take you where you are, we'll meet you where you are. So reach out and really consider a global career. I did not answer your question, Ryan, but I have taken my time, so I will forward to someone else.
Well, along those lines, and maybe this can go to Derrick. Not everybody does. I mean, you brought it up, right? Not everybody has a chance to go abroad. Not everybody has a chance to take an unpaid internship. So, what other kinds of experiences specifically would you recommend for students who do want to go this way? So, I know that's kind of turning the question back onto you, but what specifically, might be able to kind of get them down the path a little bit further. So Derrick, if you wouldn't mind answering that, and then we'll see if Vallera wants to jump back in.
Okay. Well, yes. Well, you're right. Well, first of all, I would say that the federal government, we offer to work civil service as well as foreign service. So not everyone would like to go overseas. So I myself started out as a civil service employee working in Washington, D.C. and later joined foreign service. So you get people say, I'm not quite sure about foreign service. So we offer both opportunities for you, civil service and foreign service. And as I was looking at the survey, I saw the different categories where people were majoring in. I would say, first of all, a degree means that you're trainable. And within the United States Agency for International Development, we take all degrees. And we bring you in. I heard some of my colleagues talk about training. We would train you. Yes, we do have specific areas, in the health and then the human rights, where yes, the degree is critical, but also we have people that have general degrees that come in and they might want to be a contracting officer, or they might want to be a program officer. I myself got my undergrad in accounting, and I started out as a financial person that went up to be a controller, and then went into senior leadership to be a deputy mission director, and then ended my career with 3 missions abroad, working as a mission director, which is the highest area that you can work in USAID. And within that, we have people from various different backgrounds. So it looked at what you really, feel that you want to start out in, what areas you spark your interest, that you interested in pursuing, because I think that's the most important as we talk about global competency, as to looking to seeing, what you enjoy doing or something, because if you don't enjoy doing it, then chances are you're going to change again. And so you look at all what we have to provide, and I will say our colleagues move around. You move from one subject area to another subject area because, we sometimes don't want to be complacent. And so we do allow the opportunity in foreign service to have that ability to move around. So I offer that up to people on this call to look at the different areas that we look at pursuing, and look at, your interests and what you would like to see yourself doing. Over.
Brian, I did want to jump in very quickly because I think that we talked about in the past, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, in the past, we had unpaid internships, and we realized that we were alienating or not including a large part of the population that we really wanted to be inclusive to include as colleagues. So as recent as in the last 3 to 6 months, we have changed in the State Department our internships to paid internships. So I really don't want anybody to not consider maybe doing an internship because for financial reasons. Please go ahead and go onto our website and the new information that is out there. And then one other point I want to go to in the chat, ask about veterans preference points being honored. And yes, in the federal government, we do honor veterans preference points across the board. As you know, Veterans Day is on Friday. We're doing a lot of panels and promotions to talk about veterans really transferring their time in service already into the foreign service. I myself bought back my years when I retired, which gave me more years in the retirement calculation. So we all at the organizations have a specific person who is there to talk about the categories of using your DD 214 and making sure that your veterans preference points are applied, that you've earned or applied.
Thank you very much. I want to ask a question that may be quite variable in terms of the answer across the programs we have here today, USAID and Peace Corps, essentially. And that is, how well rooted or how well versed do students need to be in international and regional geopolitics and social political movements and all of that stuff? How much kind of content is useful or desired as you're applying? And is there a way to effectively highlight that when you are applying? Of course, your degree, and you were all saying all degrees are welcome. That means you're trainable. I totally get that. But are there certain ways for folks, because we have a lot of folks majoring in sort of specific niches here that they might want to highlight to increase their chances? So I'd like to hear maybe from Jackie first, and then Jessica, if you want to add to that, then we'll go to Derrick.
Thank you. So how does that play into the application, or how well versed should one be? I think as a citizen who will be living abroad, ideally the person is very aware of what kind of the program they're getting themselves into, Peace Corps in this case. And then, of course, a little bit of the history of where you're going to. Peace Corps will do its best to also not train you, but give you a short history lesson on Peace Corps' presence in the country, some of the impact of the US in that country. So it's good to be very aware as someone doing the program, to be a very mindful citizen and globally aware. I consider that part of the global competence of someone who is very up on their current affairs. And with socio-political movements as well, that is something that I've seen an uptick in a lot of individuals potentially interested in the Peace Corps. They talk about how they're motivated to advocate for example, this topic or this issue here and there. I feel like a lot of that really can play into a very competitive application as I've seen it, because typically, for example, an individual who may be is very passionate about access to education, they typically will be involved in a lot of facilitation regarding education, typically will be involved in maybe even after school tutoring. And that's just one example. I've seen it across the board of so many issues. And I feel like individuals who have a strong purpose and motivation for wanting to pursue something, or they're very passionate about a cause, typically have a strong resume that can make them a very competitive applicant. So if that's something you already do, keep at it. If that's something you're not doing, that is okay. But do consider, right, that global competence that was previously described in the previous question.
Thank you, Jessica. How would you add to that, or what would you like to say?
Sure. I can just add that, similar to something someone else was saying earlier, not kind of being very internationally aware is not a bar to pursuing a lot of these experiences, because personally, I wasn't. Going back to something you originally said, I was a philosophy major at Georgia State. So I wasn't internationally minded at all. And it wasn't until I encountered another Peace Corps volunteer who was currently serving and visited her site that kind of made me even aware of this type of programming, that I decided to pursue it, kind of seeing myself in her and saying, okay, this experience is accessible to me. And so, in terms of, and then once you get out there, then it's kind of like, it expands your mind almost immediately. Having these experience kind of leads to, a waterfall, a cascade of, just more and more global awareness as you're actually going through it. So I think, again, even going from a more short-term experience like study abroad or Peace Corps or being a foreign service agent, or officer, just begin to engage the experiences without feeling like you don't have a certain level of competence to even explore what the options are. And, once I started, we were having conversations on here today about still what are the options for someone as soon as you get involved in international programming and, just talking, doing the research, figuring out, different options and opportunities that are available for you.
Thank you. And Derrick, how do you see it? I guess we could even add, not just politics and socio-political movements to this list, but also things like economics or different things that the development folks have to consider a little bit more.
Yes, well, first of all, I would say that all jobs that we advertise are through USAID, jobs.gov, all the federal government jobs. So anytime we have any opening, I think my colleagues have placed it in the chat, that is where you will see jobs. And yes, I said earlier, a degree means you're trainable, but you're right when you have specific technical areas, because we do look for specific technical areas. And expand on that when you see the advertisement come there. When you see in USAjobs.gov that you're looking for a health officer, if you're undergrad, whether you have experience or not, I know many of you say, okay, I might not have that experience, but think about what volunteer work you've done and how you cater each job that you see listed towards the experience that you have, whether it's paid or unpaid experience, because a lot of people sell themselves short. They look and say, hey, I haven't started working, but you're out there, you're in your community, you're working, you're volunteering, and tailor that back towards what we're looking for. And don't be afraid to fail on the first time. I know many Gen Zs want to land that first internship or fellowship the first time, but most of my colleagues tried 3 or 4 times. They did not successfully get in the first time. And so you apply for many different jobs. And that's why I say you look at what's advertised and you apply for it. You might say it might not be your first choice, but then it might be one of your top 3 or one of your top 5 choices. So I would say apply for those jobs that you see advertised, because the great thing about the federal government, once you get into the system, it's easier to move around. And good thing that I spoke at Spelman about, I guess, a month ago, And a lot of the individuals did not know, because I started as an intern, and I say all of that time counted towards my federal service. And so when people say, wow, you're young, too young to be retired, I said, well, I had 3+ years of the university that counted towards my career time with the federal government. And so all of that counts towards your federal government service, which means, and I know many of my Gen Z colleagues, you want to leave the government early, you want to retire early and do something else, you can be out of the system in 20 years, and it will go so fast. So look at what's being advertised and apply accordingly.
So it's not too late for me. Thank you.
It's not too late.
Vallera, I don't mind if you want to speak to this a little bit, but then I want to ask you another question that was my favorite one from our pre-planning period. Do you want to add anything to this little conversation?
I do. I
Okay.
just want to piggyback on what Derrick has said, and I want individuals to look at the other end. I encourage you, I challenge you to cast your net as broadly as possible, to apply to everything and every agency and organization that you may think that you're interested in, whether it's student opportunities, jobs, or fellowships, or internships. There are so many opportunities out there for everybody, but I would ask you not to put all of your eggs in one basket and to apply as broadly as you can to every opportunity out there. I think that that will serve you well in the end. Now I will go to your
Okay. Yeah, I'm reading. We have a bunch of questions. I want to put them all in a good order. Jesus put some questions in the chat, but let me ask this. This was an enlightening conversation for me in our pre-planning, which was, what's more important in the work that you do, soft skills or hard skills? And if you could elaborate on what that might look like, that would be great. So go ahead, Vallera, if you want to start us there.
You know what, and I smile because everything is important. We really have opportunities where you can use your specialized training. Like Derrick, if you have an accounting background, or if you're a lawyer or a doctor, or an engineer or IT, we have a specialized way that you can come in and serve. We call them actually specialists. And then more generalist, I was a foreign service officer, which you can consider a traditional diplomat. And we look for all kinds of backgrounds to come in there into that application. But during my time on active, I served as a foreign service. I served at our Foreign Service Institute and worked in our what we call orientation. So if you think about it as boot camp for a foreign service officer or a specialist that comes over, you go through 6 weeks of boot camp in order to learn your basic skill sets. And one of the things that I observed is a lot of individuals are coming and joining organizations, and they are wonderful in their global awareness. They're wonderful in their languages. They speak 4, 5, 6 different languages. They've done study abroad and semesters abroad. But the challenge is interpersonal skills, a very soft skill set. If you remember, as diplomats, our responsibility is at last 10 feet to develop a relationship with other countries and other leaders in countries. So you really have to focus on your soft skills, your ability to communicate. And there's a lot of different ways that you can either enhance or develop your soft skills. And I will challenge everyone out there, and it's at all generational levels. Our IT platforms have kind of made us not really focus on the face-to-face interpersonal skills. It is a deficit across the board. So I would challenge and ask that, in addition to your hard skills, that you don't forget about the soft skills also, and learning how to interact and get along, because that is our biggest challenge. If you really think about everything that's going on, is trying to make all of us play well together in the sandbox.
Thank you very much. Jessica, in your experience, how did you sort of see these soft skills come and maybe even develop over time?
Exactly. That's actually what I was going to speak to. I appreciated in our conversation previously how Vallera stated that, some of these skills you may not have, but you can develop, and you should work to develop them. I think, Peace Corps gave me a plethora of transferable skills that I learned from just kind of jumping into the deep end of the pool and just being in these situations where I was coming into my community and I was just being brought in front of, 30 kids, like, here's your US diplomat, what are you going to do? I learned how to just, okay, engage experiences like that, connect with another culture, just by doing it. Some of these skills you don't think you have before you're put in a situation where you can kind of like thrive and pull out skills that you didn't know that you had. So, I think that, again, I'm a proponent of just kind of don't let anything be a barrier to you feeling like these experiences aren't for you and you can't pursue them, because you will learn things about yourself and develop in ways that you didn't know you could by simply getting out there and doing it. So yeah, having soft skills, having interpersonal, communication and intercultural relations with other people and around the world do help you develop, going back to our conversation about global competency, they help you develop that over time. And so, myself included, I'm still learning how to develop myself with interpersonal skills and professionally, and, just being a very responsible global citizen. And those things, happen by doing them.
Thank you so much. Jackie, I feel like maybe the Peace Corps is even one of these organizations. I mean, I'm sure that soft skills matter everywhere. It just seems like the Peace Corps, I mean, you must do interviews and really look for this. And before you answer, I just want to thank Derrick. We had some very detailed questions in the chat, and I asked Derrick if he wouldn't mind taking a crack at them. And so thank you, Derrick, for doing that. Go ahead, Jackie. How do you see the soft skills when you are interviewing? What kinds of things do you look for? I mean, thank you.
Yeah, so soft skills are very important. Having those hard skills are very great to have, but I feel like what makes, for me, as someone who works primarily with the individual pre-interview, is to see that that individual has already a skill set of either they already have interpersonal skill sets or they are open to learning. For me, I'm always considering the person if they are very aware of what they're going to do and if they're willing to do it, right? And I typically read that from previous experiences. I'll ask them about previous job, previous internship, previous volunteer experience, whatever is on their resume or coursework, and they had to work in the classroom with a senior capstone project or something. I will typically try to hear from them and how they interacted in those situations to see, okay, this person is open to learning or maybe already possesses a skill set in some way, shape, or form. But in the interview, a lot of the questions are typically based on skill sets that typically you will find or very much practice in the Peace Corps. So a lot of them are situational based, where you'll be asked to give a time where you experienced X situation and you'll have to refer to what you've done. It is not necessary, again, to have it developed, but I typically, speaking from my own experience as a Peace Corps volunteer, I felt like those who were most successful were those who were willing to talk the most to their community members and go outside kind of their heads and jump out of their comfort zones and make those connections, because in your service you might be the only one, and to have people who you consider family, community members who you consider as family, Peace Corps volunteers who you might consider close, having a bigger network helps you kind of feel more supported in your service. So I definitely do recommend finding opportunities to practice those, or if you don't have that just yet, be very aware that you will be practicing those in the Peace Corps and be open to learning and experiencing those situations.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more question. And if I could ask my panelists if they're comfortable to, and some of you already have put your email address in the chat. If you're comfortable doing that, great. That'd be wonderful as we close out. And I know that we've come from different you've come to these international careers at different points in your lives. But maybe thinking back, if you were a new college graduate, thinking about how great you love, how great your career is and how much you love it today. What do you wish someone had told you back then to help you make this a wise career choice? And we'll give this to Derrick first. He's been doing a lot of hard work on the chat. So go ahead, Derrick, take a break, get those fingers a rest.
Well, thanks, Ron. Well, I'm probably not a good example because I was one of those students that I got started very early, so I heard about the opportunities in foreign service and I took part in internships. So what I would say is that the internships that we have, the fellowship, because we also, and I saw 48% is at the undergraduate level. So once you come closer to graduation, that if you're still looking, we have fellowships that you can, these are excellent programs. So I would encourage you to look at the various programs that State Department has, Peace Corps, USAID, any federal agency, and look at applying to those programs, because we have programs that I would say it's almost like the back door to get into the Foreign Service, like the Payne Fellowship Program. After you graduate, you can apply for that program. You can go to get graduate studies for a couple of years, and then you can go directly into the Foreign Service. And so those you can't take back. So you might look and say, 4 years later, I wish I would have done that program. So I would say, look early at the different opportunities that are there and apply for those opportunities. And talk to people like us. Don't be afraid to reach out. And we're happy to serve as mentors. We're happy to share our experiences. We're happy to talk you through applications, help you to talk you through your process, interview questions. We want to get more of you involved in careers in the Foreign Service. And so anything that we can do, and anytime that you see people that make themselves available, take those opportunities. And that's why I would encourage you, because a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, while I was in college, they said, I wish I would have done what you had done when I was in college. So I would say, I challenge you guys to look at the opportunities that are out there now and talk to people. And you might have a different connotation with the federal government. I know I did. I didn't want to work for the federal government. I thought it was like CIA. I thought it was like, I don't want to work with the government. But after learning more about what the government did and learning the opportunities that was out there, and financially, you can make money. Not only can you help people abroad, but you can make money, you can save. And when you get ready to retire, most people don't have to work. And, I don't think there are many careers out there that people look and say they don't really need to work after they finish their career. So challenge you to take part and reach out to all of the resources my panelist members that you see here today. Over.
Thank you. And I appreciate the good CB over. Oh, I like that. I like that new convention. I'm going to adopt that. I'm getting signals that it's time to wrap up. Jackie, do you want to say one more? Do you want to say one thing on this before we do wrap up? We have 2 minutes, I'm seeing.
So if you are interested in working for the federal government, there's so many ways to get there. In terms of what I wish I knew growing up, I heard about the Peace Corps early on in college. I didn't know that's something people heard about much sooner, or even in the beginning of their life, whatever it may be. But I do encourage everyone to really explore those opportunities from your career services, with study abroad. Maybe they have somewhat programs, but do really engage in the resources you have access to. There's so many pathways available for current college students or undergrad students, especially. Do consider them. Don't just feel like, oh, I have to do Peace Corps related things. I only have to do this agency's things. Explore them all and see which one works for you. And feel free to reach out to recruiters if it's something you want to do with Peace Corps, and you can ask them more in-depth questions. But I really hope you take advantage of all resources available.
Thank you so much. Well, I think that's going to conclude. I don't know if there's anything else on my script I'm supposed to read, but I want to thank I want to thank Vallera, Derrick, Jackie, Jessica for sharing your time with us today and telling us about some of the wonderful opportunities at your organizations. We really appreciate the valuable tips and advice you can give to our students and recent grads. Thank you for participating in the GSU Global Career Series. And we want to thank our audience also for attending. We hope that you enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us tomorrow at 1 to learn about multinational and bilingual opportunities in Metro Atlanta. And if you haven't registered, please take a look at the chat, which I think it'll be in there if it's, yes. All right, you got one from Diana Renrap in there for tomorrow to register. So you navigated the system well enough to get to this one, so you can probably get to tomorrow's if you want to. Finally, I'd like to thank the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, and the BIS programs in Global Studies, Asian Studies, Middle East Studies, and GSU Study Abroad programs for organizing this awesome series. Please check out more International Education Week events on the website in the chat. Have a fantastic afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow at 1.
All right, cheers.
Bye, thank you.
Well, good to see some of you again, Jackie.
Bye-bye.